Hi, I'm Shantae Jackson with Sandal Blue Foundation, and I'm so excited that you're here for today's resource conversation. These conversations are intended to help motor vehicle incident survivors and their families with tools, tips, and guidance. You're really in for a treat today. Today we have Matt from TandemStride. Matt, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm so glad. So, Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of a brief overview of what TandemStride is.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I have my professional life, I've spent most of my time in healthcare technology companies, building products and tools for hospitals, health systems, and insurance companies to help them hopefully serve patients better. My exposure to trauma and traumatic injury happened almost 14 years ago. My brother, who's a year and 6 months older than I am, was involved in a pedestrian train accident and became a bilateral amputee when he was 23. So the journey and group that you're supporting and the journey that most of those people are on are one that myself and my family felt directly. And so over the last 14 years, I've had the pleasure of seeing my brother rebuild his life. He's got three beautiful children, an amazing wife, and a great family network, if I want to pat myself on the back.
Absolutely.
Um, and I mean, it's been a challenge navigating all of that. So a couple years ago, I set out to start TandemStride. After about a decade of building products and technology for healthcare, I still noticed that many trauma survivors felt the same way my family felt. Felt like we were the first people to go through this, and that there was no playbook for what happens next and how to do that. So what we do at TandemStride, we are a digital health company that partners with hospitals and insurance companies to give folks a platform to land on and access support and resources to navigate their recovery after a life-altering injury occurs. That could be a motor vehicle incident, that could be a violent crime, it could be a fall from a ladder, you name it, anything that goes through the trauma bay. We are there to try to help support them as part of the discharge process. I think a lot of trauma survivors, they have a nurse and a doctor a call button away for their time in the hospital. But when they have a question, when they get back home, it's not always that easy to find support or an answer for that. So we're building digital tools and a platform for trauma survivors and their families to navigate the transition from the acute care setting back into everyday life.
I love that. And, I think anybody that's, listening to this, they have an understanding of that feeling of, I'm the first person. I love that you said it that way. You feel like you're the first person. You know you're not, right? We look at the news
Yeah.
and we know that we're not the first person that's actually gone through this, but it really does feel that way. I think even in the hospital, you're around other people that are going through something similar, especially if you're on a trauma floor, but yet you don't interact much. And if you do, it's kind of in passing. And then, like you said, you get to discharge and it's like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Now what? Right? The hospitals do such a good job at what they do. And then we feel like we're on our own. And then the isolation really, really starts to set in. And
I
that's,
agree. I
yep.
wanted just to jump in. I think it's funny because I don't know. From the before my brother's accident, from the outside looking in, I think everyone views the time of when you're being discharged from the hospital. It's like a sigh of relief, or like it's an exciting time, but it comes with a lot of hesitation and resistance because as soon as you get home, my brother was faced with. I mean, he moved back into my mom's dining room. And it's the last thing
Oh,
any college student
wow.
wants to do. But it's like he's navigated that world before, but it is very different now. And that's a super scary thing to overcome. So I think normally everyone's like, leaving the hospital, this is exciting, this is great. And while it is, it does come with a lot of trepidation and uncertainty. And that's something that not a lot of people are prepared for because they're just taking things day by day, trying to make progress every day.
It's so true. I do a lot of visits at the hospital and typically they'll bring me in right right around discharge time simply because they admittedly say, we don't really know how to help them with this transition. We do this really good, but this transition of going home and what that's going to look like, you're right. Everybody's hooting and hollering. And of course, it's a celebration that you've made it to that milestone of getting discharged. But there's usually, like 50 more milestones to hit. And, luckily for us, my dad had said, listen, the hospital is just the beginning. You have a marathon. So when people are offering to help, it's okay to say, not yet. Right now, I have a whole staff helping me. But when I get home,
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to look like. And I don't know who that's going to be. And I won't have somebody that's paid, to take care of me and to help me with these things. So we really appreciate what you do and are so excited to learn more. So you mentioned that TandemStride is for trauma survivors. So who exactly would you say? Somebody listening, they're like, do I fit into this category? And when do I reach out? When do I start to look into Tandem Stride? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, yeah, we focus on trauma survivors and really, I would say more so focused around those that have a physical injury. So we see a lot of spinal cord injury, amputation, major fractures, polytrauma, where there's multiple body regions that are impacted. Um, we also see burns, gunshot wounds, violent crime. I think the reality is what we see is most of our users are engaging with us or signing up for the program within 9 days of leaving the hospital for some sort of
Wow.
unplanned physical injury. So we've served, I think, about 6 or 7 thousand trauma survivors over the last year, and pretty much like clockwork, it's within 7 to 14 days of them leaving the hospital, right at that inflection point of, hey, I had help around me while I was in the hospital, but now that I'm home, I've got so many questions. I've got to figure out how I'm going to get in touch with the physical therapist, or put food on the table, or when will I get back to work? Can I work right now? All of these questions come into focus. So that's usually where we see it. The physical injury side is something that is just a little easier to predict. So I feel like people find themselves in a new circumstance, it's really easy to navigate and try to find resources when you're in this new world. And we're a great resource to help sort of support those folks. But I would say most impact and most like benefit to somebody is like before you leave the hospital or very shortly thereafter. Because what we're doing is we're taking all of this data from thousands of trauma survivors we've supported and start to figure out when things normally go wrong based on different injury types or what might be going on, like the development of post-traumatic stress disorder, even substance use disorder. I don't think anybody that's taking pain medication to support the injury that they were in ever thinks that they are going to be a substance use disorder patient, but that is a slippery slope. And sometimes, if you're not thinking and you're not prepared about a long term pain management strategy, that can be tough to navigate. So, the earlier the better. I think what we're trying to do is create a community of support of people who are going through something similar, and then tee up things that we know are blockers or challenges that most people face along their journey, and make sure you know about them before it becomes an issue. So the earlier the better. We're working with a lot of trauma centers to make sure that the education happens at the time of discharge when you're going to visit these patients in the hospital, because I think most people don't know what is ahead of them. But the reality is there's hundreds of thousands of millions of people every year that go through this. We have a good idea of what the challenges are going to be that come up. And there are some tools that can help you be proactive in getting over those hurdles in a much more efficient way. And we'd love to do our best to help you navigate that journey and not feel so alone in it, like my family did when we navigated that.
Yeah, I love that. So the very first question that comes up for me is, what if somebody learns about you and it's been a year, it's been 3 years? Are they still welcome? Talk to us a little bit about the timetable of they didn't hear about you till now and they've been discharged, it wasn't
Yeah,
7 to 9 days ago. Tell us, is it still a good place for them?
absolutely. So I would say, like, when someone signs up on the TandemStride app, which is like the survivor or caregiver or family member facing version of our platform, there's a bunch of tools in there that they can access. I think one of the most exciting ones that actually launches on May 20th, which is Trauma Survivors Day, is our new communities feature. It's essentially like a highly curated, like Facebook group for just trauma survivors. I think the challenge that I noticed when my brother was going through his journey was finding community. Like none of us had ever lost a limb before. And there's a bunch of these public forums out there that can sometimes be less helpful than helpful. So what we're doing is building a community feature where people can check in daily, share milestones, wins, and that can happen at any time on your journey. My brother is overcoming things to this day, 14 years later. He's volunteered at the hospital for over a decade, supporting patients that are newly navigating this journey. But in there, there's also a bunch of other tools like an AI resource navigator, where based on your zip code, it can recommend services, support, or community based services that might be available to you. And that stuff happens all the time for people. The other thing is we have questionnaires and screeners where we can check in on people's mental health and well being and provide them some guidance on things they could do to improve that. That's something that people deal with all the time, whether it's 10 days after the hospital or 10 years after the hospital. So there's certainly an opportunity to use some of the tools that we're building at any stage in your recovery journey. And I would invite anyone to engage. And who knows, maybe sharing your experience might help somebody else. And we see that happen a lot in the community that we're building.
I love that. And it's so, so true that not only will, I mean, most likely is going to help somebody else, it will probably help you as well. I know from my experience, connecting with other people has been I maybe more a blessing to me than anybody. Do I hope that it helps them? Yes. Have they said that it helps them? Yes. But do I know that it has helped me? Absolutely. And what a gift that is to give people that they can really reach out just to help other people, but to know that there is, some growth that will happen within them as they're helping somebody else. It's a lot easier to see your progress when you're looking at somebody, a little bit farther back on their journey and being able to say, oh, these are the things I've learned, and then recognizing, oh, these are the things I've learned, and
Yeah.
to kind of see that through. And you don't realize it, unless you're kind of talking to somebody in your shoes, so to say. So you mentioned that TandemStride is an app. So talk to us about how people sign up. Everybody's going to wonder if it costs. Who's
Mhm.
welcome? Is it just survivors, caregivers? You mentioned both of those
Mhm.
categories. Tell us a little bit about how to get into it and what that entails.
So the survivor and caregiver facing app, you can find it in the Google Play or Apple App Store. It is 100% free for anyone to download and use. And we definitely invite any individual going through some sort of physical traumatic injury or loved one, could be family member, could be friend. We see all sorts of different folks that take an active role in wanting to support somebody and have perspective and be helpful in that. So certainly encourage anybody to do that. It's really easy. That said, there are certain features and capabilities that may not be available in your market or your state. For example, we launched a program that is totally funded by insurance companies in the state of Ohio, where we started, called our Tandem Guides program, where a trauma survivor, if they need additional support, can actually interact directly with a trauma coach or a community health worker, a nurse practitioner, and actually a clinical team to help them navigate some of the things they might need. For example, like maybe some DME or like grab bars or a wheelchair or a walker was missed during their discharge process, or maybe they didn't think they needed it at that time. We can help them navigate a bunch of those different challenges that happen. Now, that's currently only available in Ohio. We're planning to expand that to a number of states over the next year. But some of the basic core capabilities could be used by anybody, and it's definitely more anchored towards a trauma survivor or a loved one or a caregiver that might be supporting that trauma survivor. And
Okay,
it is free,
so
100% free.
I love that. What a great resource. I mean, you guys are just doing such incredible work. I know you know that, but please just be reminded you're doing incredible work to know that there's a place to go for free that you can access 24/7. I know for me, there were a lot of nights at midnight. I was like, I just need something. And it's really not the time to, call a therapist or look up a doctor that I
Mm-hmm.
can see. And it was in those moments that are dark. And those are the really hard places. And to know that this is available, to connect with somebody else that is either feeling that at that exact same moment or has felt that before or will feel that is such a beautiful thing. So once they download the app, it sounds like you guys do all sorts of things.
Mhm.
And that's an amazing thing, but it can be a little bit intimidating. So tell us maybe where people would start. What's the best thing to start with? Once they get the app, I assume they create some sort of a login. They're in. Where do you recommend people start?
Yeah, I think honestly, it is nice because it can be like a choose your own adventure, depending what your needs are. And as part of the onboarding, like when you're creating your profile on the account, just like you would for any other app or service that you access, we get, names and basic demographic information. We always ask, what's the biggest challenge you're facing that you could use support on today? And I think that's a really telling question when you ask folks because it can be totally different. And there's probably something in the app that can help you with that. For some folks, the challenge might be, you know, getting food on the table, or I've just got a utility shut off notice because I was in the hospital for so long, or I haven't been able to find reliable work. That person might have more success navigating to our AI resource navigator right out of the gate and searching what things might be available to them to help them address that challenge. Other folks come into the app, and when we ask them what their biggest challenge is, they just say, I just want to connect with somebody. I feel like no one understands what I'm going through. And that's where that person's journey probably would start more so right now with requesting a peer mentor, and they can get matched with a one-to-one chat. We match people based on the type of injury they had. A really good indicator of like a meaningful connection is oftentimes the age in which the person was when the injury occurred. Because, in my brother's case, he wasn't thinking about a mortgage or feeding his kids. He was 23 and trying to graduate college and was really probably more concerned about dating at that time. So,
Absolutely.
so we look at a lot of those factors to match one to one. And someone that's looking for connection, that's a really great way to get started and just talk to folks. As soon as May 20th hits and we're live with communities, the reality is what we found is not everyone's always ready to actively engage in one to one peer communication or connection. And communities will provide an opportunity for you to see how other people are doing or how they're interacting. You might be more comfortable commenting, liking, or providing support to somebody else before you're comfortable sharing more about your specific journey. And that will give you an opportunity to sort of see this community of people navigating something similar to you. And you can passively engage with that, just like we do with a lot of other social media that's out there, scrolling and just seeing what is interesting to other people might pique our interest. So it really depends. And I think we've designed the app in a way to make it super intuitive. We actually, when we launch new features, we don't do a whole lot to say, like, hey, this new thing is there. We actually just notice a lot of our user base is just poking around and finds new features because they're genuinely curious and they don't know what to expect and they don't have a strong opinion on this is exactly what I need right now. Because for most folks, this is a completely new journey that they haven't navigated before. So they're just open to seeing what might be out there and what they might not be thinking about that could help them.
I love that. So, as you're talking about some of these different ways that they can engage, the, I'm a very visual person, so I'm wondering, is it all copy based that it's just text, or is there images that people can put on?
Right now, we do words. There are like posts that are on there that we put in there, like inspirational posts and things that people can react to. We do have the ability for folks to upload, videos and photos in one-to-one chats, not into the community. We're doing our best to like moderate and make sure there's no sensitive content or things that aren't out there that would trigger somebody or be something that you don't plan to see. So we definitely have a lot of that on the behind the scenes to support it. But the app is like super intuitive. I mean, our product design team, our engineering team, and our product folks are truly world class. That this will be like a modern, exciting experience engaging. We actually are releasing a milestones feature that sort of as you navigate different parts of the application, you can get certain badges or milestones that you accomplish for like making your first post or your first comment. And the team took this to a totally different level. They started out by building out all these milestones, and it actually starts out with like just a blank image. And as you complete the milestones, it colors in the colors of this coloring book to actually
Oh,
paint this
cool.
whole scene for you. It's really exciting. It's sort of a play on sort of art therapy and some of that work. So as you engage and do different things in the application, you get to color in your picture or your painting that shows the progress that you're making and everything that you do within the application, which is all focused on driving sort of the motivation and instinctual response to want to improve over time, which we know
Mm,
is important in the resilience of survivors.
that's beautiful. And one thing that is really big on my mind is trauma sensitive. I hesitate to join like a Facebook group, for example, because a lot of times people are wanting to just share their story, which is fine, but it does trigger me. And so a lot of times it's not super helpful for me. I know for some it is. And you mentioned, kind of being aware that things aren't going to trigger. What kind of precautions do you take? What kind of guidance do you give? It sounds like you guys are really focused on trying to motivate and the resilience and the progress more than just sharing. But what precautions are you taking in that regards?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, just like you would have any, social media or something might have content moderation where they identify, aggressive behavior or language that's not great, and we would, sort of hide those from view for the broader community. But when you look to engage, you have a couple different prompts. Like you can do miles, you can do a community check-in where you're just saying how you're feeling that day, and then you select an option that says 14 other people feel that way too. Again, trying to create a sense of community in almost everything that you do, because it can be very isolating while you navigate this journey. But if you want to post something, you can also check and say, I don't want advice. Therefore, people can't comment. And all we're looking for is encouragement. And I'm not looking for you to solve my problem,
Oh,
which is like
wow.
a big thing because that toxic positivity can get pretty boring and it can really be a challenge. And it happens quite frequently. But if you're going to post something that is a little bit deeper, you can also flag that and say, this is a high intensity post. And high intensity posts are sort of blocked and grayed out. And people that want to see them can accept and say, hey, I'd like to check this out. But as a standard, what we do is we block any high intensity posts. People can self identify a high intensity post. You can also tag certain things like a milestone or a win or something that I overcame. And you can sort comments and posts from others that have used those same tags. So you can start to explore the topics that you're most interested in. And anytime that you see something that you don't want to see, you can also say, I don't want to see this. So we've been really thoughtful and intentional to make sure that we create a space that is inviting for everybody. And folks can consume or interact with it in the way that they feel most comfortable and show up in the way they feel most effective.
I think the biggest thing that I'm hearing is this was made by people that get it. You know,
Totally.
it's so obvious that this is made by people that get it. Sometimes, we'll say in our family, they just don't get it. And I always think they don't get it unless they get it. I don't want them to have to get it, right? Because that means they've gone through something really, really challenging. But if you understand, this is how you build something beautiful. And it's really obvious that you guys have come from a place with great intention of true support in a way that's effective. And so grateful for that and what you've brought. Matt, is there anything that I haven't asked about or that you'd love to tell us about or even just leave listeners with today?
That's a great question. I think you like ended on a good note. I mean, this is a platform for survivors built by survivors. Our team is small but mighty. We have almost 30 folks on the team. About 70% of them are trauma survivors or family members of trauma survivors. We do get it. That's why I'm so happy to be here and support the work that you're doing and your team is doing. I see a bit of my family story in your story, and there is definitely a community here. So I just want people to know that there are a lot of folks, the Sandal Blue Foundation, TandemStride, you name it, that are really focused on trying to improve this journey for folks that go through something that can change their life in an instant. And we're here for it. If you have ideas, comments, concerns, questions, please reach out to me. I am super excited to be serving this community that I did not plan to be a part of, but I'm so honored to be involved with.
Thank you so much. I will just attest that Matt and his team are real people with honest hearts really, really it makes me emotional, but really, really willing to be there and not because it's their job, but because they care. They created a life doing what they care about. And it's really evident anytime I have spoken with him. And I know that his team is the same. So, Matt, thank you so much for being here with us today. We appreciate you. Thank you for Tandem Stride for sponsoring this episode. And with that, we hope your road is a little bit easier.